Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
So we're going to say a different verse this evening, and Ed's going to bring it up on the screen. And it's a concise version of the verse for opening the sutra, which is said before Dharma talks. So if you would say this with me, please. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to hear it, study it, and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. So I thought of including that verse a few minutes before we started because it speaks, I think, to the talk I'm going to share with you today. And it also expresses, in a way, Suzuki Roshi's Zen mind. It's vast and subtle. And in Zen mind, beginner's mind, he said, the purpose of Zazen is to attain the freedom of our being physically and mentally. According to Dogen Zenji, every existence is a flashing into the vast phenomenal world. Each existence is another expression of the quality of being itself. And sometimes I find it really helpful to be reminded of something about why we practice Zazen. It's very easy to forget. And I was thinking, we could put that in our pocket, and if we forget, we say the purpose of Zazen is to attain the freedom of our being physically and mentally. And perhaps I'm thinking the attainment can feel like it's a long way away, but I'm wondering what it would be today to feel free physically and mentally. After saying those words, Suzuki Roshi went on to say, I often see many stars early in the morning. The stars are nothing but the light which has travelled at great speed many miles from the heavenly bodies. But for me, the stars are not speedy beings, but calm, steady, and peaceful beings. And then he uses this as a way of introducing the teaching of, in calmness there should be activity, in activity there should be calmness, which for me is a constant koan. I think sometimes it's really helpful to think about the painter as well as the painting, the writer as well as the writing, and I'm really curious about what Suzuki Roshi is doing here. He starts off with a very clear statement, and then he talks about the stars being calm, steady, and peaceful beings, and then he uses it as a bridge to what he wants to express and explain. In calmness, there should be activity. In activity, there should be calmness. And he seems to do that through the whole book. It's a constant flow of statement and bridge and teaching. Very beautiful. Last month I went on holiday with Trudy and Mary to St Ives in Cornwall, a fishing village in West Penwith on the southwest tip of England, beyond which is the vast Atlantic Ocean, the next landfall being the eastern seaboard of the United States. It is said that the light in St Ives has a special quality that makes it unique. Indeed, this special quality of light is renowned for having attracted generations of artists to the town. We went on a tour led by Polly Carter, more of a beautiful immersion actually, of Talland House Garden, the childhood holiday garden of the novelist Virginia Woolf, who spent the summer months there every year with her family from 1882 to 1895. The Stephen family would make the long train journey from London to St Ives, accompanied by a maid and a cook. Those summer childhood months provided the inspiration, the seeds, for much of Virginia Woolf's work, including to the Lighthouse, which was published in 1927. Polly Carter is creating the garden to reflect the flowers and shrubs to be found there in the late 1800s, and which found their way into Virginia Woolf's writing. From Talland House Garden, you can look out across the vast aquamarine St Ives Bay to Godrevy Lighthouse, which, around 7 miles away, warned ships of the dangers of the nearby Stones Reef. Woolf's writing was groundbreaking in that it moved away from a novel as story and narrative to what was called at the time streams of consciousness, an exploration of the processes of the mind. Johann Lehrer writes that Woolf realized that the self emerges via the act of attention. We bind together our sensory parts by experiencing them from a particular point of view. The outside world gets thoroughly interpreted. I'll say that again. Woolf realized that the self emerges via the act of attention. We bind together our sensory parts by experiencing them from a particular point of view. The outside world gets thoroughly interpreted. And he goes on to say, any given experience can endure about 10 seconds in short-term memory. After that, the brain exhausts its capacity for the present tense, and its consciousness must begin anew with a new stream. So 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. So for each of the 20 people there that afternoon, a self was emerging from our acts of attention again and again, repeatedly. And this is happening to us now, again and again, repeatedly, during our time together today. The next day, I got up very early and watched the dawn arrive in St Ives. And the little town was waking up, lights were coming on, small fishing boats were going out to sea, the headland across the bay was coming into focus, and there was the sound of seagulls. And I was really touched by this slowly emerging dawn. And what most draws me to it is the site of Godrevy Lighthouse, several miles away. I want to create a Dharma talk about it, this one, for inquiry on the 8th of October. That's where my attention is. Others may want to allow a self to emerge by painting it, writing about it, photographing it, creating music inspired by it, sailing to it, exploring the science of how it works. And if you were part of the maintenance crew, perhaps you want to land on the island and just maintain it. And if you're maintenance crew and an ornithologist, you will attend to the bird life while you're maintaining the lighthouse. I wonder how you would respond to this scene. And I wonder if you're creating an image of Dharma, if we were to have an exhibition of images of Dharma what you would choose to put in the exhibition. For me today, it would be Godrevi Lighthouse. So as I'm recalling the scene that was before me, I'm reminded of what Flint shared last week about always returning, a very essential part of practice, and being a light unto oneself. So for me, to create a talk about the lighthouse, I see it as steady, upright practice, continuous light shining, and even when it can't be seen in fog, the light continues. Courage to accept weathers and all seeds, offering a light unto itself and others. And I'm reminded about what Suzuki Roshi said about patience and constancy. He said, I have always said that you must be very patient if you want to understand Buddhism, but I have been seeking for a better word. Perhaps constancy is a better word. You must force yourself to be patient, but in constancy there is no particular effort involved. There is only the unchanging ability to accept things as they are. There is only the unchanging ability to accept things as they are. So for me, I wanted to create this image. I wanted to myself to emerge from these images of the lighthouse so that I could create an image of practice. In Zen mind, beginner's mind, I feel there's no resting place for an inquiring busy mind in this book. Like the vast ocean, as soon as you get used to one expression of it, you're tossed by the next wave. And perhaps you just have to rest in the vast ocean of the book to fully appreciate it. So returning to Suzuki Roshi, earlier he shared his feelings about the stars, but then he kind of contradicts himself later on. He says, to have some deep feeling about Buddhism is not the point. We just do what we should do, like eating supper and going to bed. This is Buddhism. For us, the monastic life was the usual life, and the people who came from the city were unusual people. Then when we saw them, we felt, oh, some unusual people have come. But when Suzuki Roshi returned to his monastery after some time, he had a different experience. He heard the various sounds of practice, the bells and the monks reciting the sutra, and he describes having a very deep feeling. There were tears flowing out of my eyes, nose and mouth. It is the people outside of the monastery who feel its atmosphere. The people who are practicing actually do not feel anything. I think this is true for everything. When we hear the sound of the pine trees on a windy day, perhaps the wind is just blowing and the pine tree is just standing in the wind. That is all they're doing. But the people who listen to the wind in the tree will write a poem or will feel something unusual. That is, I think, the way everything is. T.S. Eliot, who is a contemporary of Virginia Woolf, wrote in the Four Quartets about the dry salvages, which is a small group of rocks with a beacon on the northeast coast of Cape Ann, Massachusetts. And he says, and the ragged rock in the restless waters, waves wash over it, fogs conceal it. On a halcyon day, it is merely a monument. In navigable weather, it is always a sea mark to lay a course by, but in the sombre season or the sudden fury, is what it always was. Like Godrevi Rock, it's just a jagged rock in restless waters. Like Suzuki Roshi's stars, nothing but the light that has travelled at great speed, and like my talk, just the creation of my own mind. Wallace Stevens said, reality is the product of the most august imagination. Reality is the product of the most august imagination. And the Buddha said, we are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Thank you very much. So, if any of those ideas have made you wonder about who we are, who you are, please do come and explore. Thank you.
Hi, Josh.
Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for that. Just letting my anxieties reduce a little bit. There
Take your,
was,
just nice to hang out with you. Just take your time.
yeah, I had to write a few things down from that, Josh. I know that that's not something we normally do, but I needed to do that. I think my question is, rather than trying to summarize what you've said and why I'm asking this question, I think it's probably the simple thing to do is just ask the question, which is, there was words in there around an unchangeable ability, and I'm trying to understand why change is so difficult. And I get that we have this unchangeable ability to accept things as they are. So I'm trying to work out then why then I'm trying to change my circumstances, which is causing me a lot of fear and anxiety. So and the last statement that you made around, our thinking makes up the world. I mean, yeah, my thinking from different parts are tying me in knots at the moment. Which, yeah, so why is change so difficult from a decision-making perspective when things are changing all the time? It should be just like there's a norm to that. Everything is changing every second of every minute of every day, and yet making changes, it certainly in my life, seems really challenging.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that. After I'd written the talk, I went for a walk around our nature reserve, and I was thinking, gosh, it's like these questions are so deep. So, we're here together wondering about those questions. And I think one of the things that is really tricky is sometimes you'll hear a statement about constancy, and it becomes something you either succeed or fail at. So I think it's really easy to get trapped in performance, for me. So for me, it's kind of a gentle inspiration rather than um, something I think I should feel. Um, so, like the lighthouse was kind of inspiring to me, but I can't always be like the lighthouse. And
No.
I think, we all can intellectually understand impermanence, but it's a really really difficult thing for us to feel able to accept it, because we have loves and attachments and all those things, and so we practice together because we do struggle with these things, um,
Mm.
and so it's kind of I try and be kind with myself when I struggle. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
I'm trying to push myself outside of my comfort zone by handing in my notice to my
mm,
London flat,
yes,
um, and wanting to then travel for a little while and then make a decision on where I'm going to live. And yeah, there's a lot of clinging and grasping towards not wanting to let go
mm,
of that flat, because there's a safety net there. But without that, without sending that email, which I've written and I've not been able to send, I just haven't been able to press the button.
yeah,
Um, is if I don't do that, then nothing will change. But yet I'm fearful of change. So it's that paradox again. It just seems just so frustrating, and yeah, and I can feel the stress. I can feel my autonomic nervous system switched up. And in that sympathetic state.
I can feel the challenge that you're meeting, and it's going to take a lot of courage and support from your friends and from Sangha members to to support you, to press that button if that's what you do, and then see what unfolds. It's big. It's big.
Mm.
So it's really important that you're exploring the edge all the time. You're looking, feels like you're looking over an edge.
Yeah,
Shall I?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It
And
feels like a cliff. It
yeah,
feels like that, and yeah, a lot of apprehension around that. But yeah, I think what I'm looking for is I'm looking for someone to tell me it's okay, it's going to be fine, it'll all be fine.
mm,
And there's a part of me going, if I do this, it'll all be fine. Everything will fall into place, and I'll have a community, and I'll feel engaged, and I won't feel isolated. But the bottom line is, it's me that's got to make the changes, and that's
yeah.
that's the realization for me, and that's the edge, I think,
Does
or
it?
one of them.
So the life you have now, is that the life you want?
No.
Okay. So it feels like there's, um, you're saying you really want somebody to say it'll be fine. I don't know quite what that would mean, but
No, me either.
um, but on this side of the, where you are, it it's not. You wouldn't want to move if it was fine. So it's not fine. It's not what you want.
Mm.
So,
No.
um, so the risk is there's always the risk. There's always the risk. And what would fine? I wonder if you need to get a sense of what fine would look like. You know,
Mm. Yeah,
and explore that.
yeah,
You can explore that with
yeah,
me. You can explore that, with any of the teachers or your Sangha friends. But
yeah,
what's the worst thing that can happen?
yeah. For me, connection is the I need that. That is the lifeline for all of us. and that's the most important thing, is a sense of community, a connection, and yeah. So
I think it's something for me about, I trust you have the resources to manage the difficulties that will happen if you leap.
thank you. Thanks. That actually means a lot, because there's a part of me that's just going, what if I regress? What if I go backwards? What if physically and mentally, I start to get sick again, and then I won't have the resources. So there's all this double bind that I'm just going round and round in circles, instead of going, fuck it, press send, and let's give it a whirl.
You'll never know unless you press send. You'll never know.
And today is the day. Today is the kind of cut, not the cut off, but I'd have to wait another month. So
And
it
then
needs to
keep in touch, and some things will, you'll probably struggle with, and some things will be, delightful or whatever. It's not.
yeah. I won't be homeless. I don't think I'll be homeless. So that's quite important to me.
Yeah, you've been practicing a long time, and you've got good friends, and
I do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you all. So thank you.
You can do this. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Hello, Mary.
Thank you for your talk. And the metaphor of the lighthouse is lovely. I just came from the coast of Michigan, and there was Lighthouse there. And listening to you, and just reflecting, Lighthouse's guidance and that sense, when you say constancy of that lighthouse, I'm struck by like the steadfastness of a lighthouse, and like the guidance of it, and how it's built to weather, like you say, all the storms and weather all of the weather. I was what I jotted down was like constancy, and words can sometimes have an impact, versus like consistency. And I think those are very different. There's something about the consistency of a practice, all right? And like you mentioned, patience as well. But all of those together. And again, like I think of, I'm in a transition right now. I just collected my 93-year-old mother. She was up for the summer in Michigan, and loved that known entity, and yet I'm bringing her back to Austin, where she knows, but it's, you talk about that short-term memory, and her short-term memory is like you're saying. So I was struck too by this sense of change in that 10 seconds of, I did not know that fact there. And that's so interesting to me, how, wow, that makes sense, how our grasping, and we want this like consistency.
Yeah.
All right, which is very different than constancy. All right, like that consistency of 10 seconds is like what I hear you saying is all we get, really.
My sense of it is that, we rather like the lighthouse light was going on every 8 seconds.
Yeah.
And I had that sense that every few seconds we need to be, for the self to keep emerging. We are attending to something. We're attending to something. And, when you talk about consistency, when I hear consistency, I hear it in my head. When I hear
Yeah.
when I can't hear constancy, I feel it in my heart.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know whether that makes how that feels for you, but consistency seems like a performance.
Yes, like practice. Yeah.
Practice, but it constantly feels like an attitude, uh, uh,
Okay.
orientation.
Okay.
Um,
And yes, they do feel very different. That's what.
yeah.
Mhm. And thank you for that distinction. And so, too, I think about to that steadfastness and the ability to be like, if you're a tree, are you an oak tree that is steadfast or a willow tree that can bend and flow? And an oak can't endure a heavy snowfall, it's going to crack, but a
Mm.
willow tree can survive stacks of snow because of its flexibility. And
So,
yeah.
so what I just thinking about the talk in a sense, you're making meaning from those images that you're creating,
Yeah.
and that's really beautiful. Like Suzuki Roshi was, and at the same time they're just trees.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Like, it's like there's what I've been exploring this week in preparing the talk is that paradox. You know,
Yeah.
we invest them with meaning.
Yes. Yes. And our thoughts, then we create the world that
Yeah,
we.
yes.
Okay. Well, as I walk this journey with my mother, I'm going to try to be both and.
I wish you well. It'll be really
Thank you.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm noticing myself being kind of like the oak tree of like, oh my gosh, feeling overwhelmed and grateful and all of that as I embark on this journey of having her back in my care. So, mhm.
Oh, I wish you well in that. It's really nice to meet you. This was a delight.
Yes, thank you, Josh.
Hi, Lynn. Lovely to see you.
I don't know what I'm going to say. I think it wasn't your words, Josh, that I was listening to. If that makes sense. And I can't remember them specifically. But the feeling that I have is a feeling of flow, I suppose. I don't know how to put it. Like, how do we explain or talk about the river, which isn't a river at all, and doesn't know it's a river, but is constantly moving and shifting and changing, and everything's changing around it, and it's not the same. And I love. Part of me loves the idea that we're changing every 10 seconds. It feels pretty rapid though. But then there's also something about in that the things that we try to hold on to, and something about feeling the flavor of each other, even though we're constantly recreating. And there's something about how do we connect at all if we're such sort of fluid changing beings. But there's something very beautiful for me about kind of feeling dipping in the water of the river with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful questions you're bringing up, and um, what it reminds me of is the Dharma verse. You know, the Dharma is vast and subtle. We vow to realize its true meaning with our um, the minds and the selves we have, which are constantly shifting. So, um, it, you know, that's a question for me. It's like, how do we what is it to realize its true meaning?
Mm. Mm.
And it for me it's quite beautiful, but it's also quite daunting.
And I'm wondering about even the verb to realize.
Mm.
Is that even possible?
Yeah. 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 And you know, the Zen mind, beginner's mind, it seems to me just full of paradoxes. Sukiroshi is saying this, and you kind of your mind goes, okay, yeah, yeah, and then a few chapters later, he pulls the rug out under you, and so you know, it feels really fluid, but nonetheless very beautiful because there's no solid ground in it for me.
Um, and for me, that's it's both beautiful and where we feel the panic,
Yes.
you know, and that feels like what's been talked about already. That sense of how do we not be scared
Mm. Mm.
of that ever-changing process that we have absolutely no control, no control over, or very little. We may have some choices of how we engage with it, but how we engage, but not about the actual
Mm.
changing every 10 seconds, you know.
I, you know, I wonder about, you know, to study the Buddha way is to study the self, and it's like these are, I get, for me, they're all kind of invitations to become more intimate with this self we think we are.
Mm. Mm.
It feels like an invitation to intimacy. Um, Over and over and over.
Over and over and over and over, without stopping.
Mm.
Thank you for for raising the paradox even further and deeper. It's like a deeper well.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Rosemary. Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Josh. Thank you. So we had a quote in our after Zazen, or this before Zazen this morning, and it was by Joanna Macy. And I can only tell you, I'm sorry about the noise, that self the self-organizing universe. She said, and I was just thinking today that this is how this whole group and meeting feels to me today. Just everybody, Ben and Lynn and Mary, and something wonderful about that. And fear, Lynn, you know, of course we are. And I've never wanted that. And I've pretty much lived my life denying. You're just, becoming very self-sufficient and competent and all of that, to not know that I was really mostly terrified. And so now I'm bringing that fear in because it's there a lot.
Mm.
And then I wanted to say, a few years ago when I decided to retire, which was like really scary and different for me, totally identified with my work. That was my comfort zone. And it took at least a year and a half working with that identification, and still was scary when I, told my patients, cutting back. And so it's really, really normal wherever you are, Ben. I can't see you, what you're experiencing. And, it'll just be lessons, a lot of lessons.
I mean, I really appreciate, you describe your self-organization, which, and to then kind of introduce the not knowing is a courageous thing, and that's why we need each other's support.
Yeah. So much.
Yeah, to visit the mystery, to explore the mystery of being here. I mean, I just wrote something for the Nothing Missing, the Just This website about, you have to write something about yourself, and I wrote something about wanting to feel into the depths of this precious life, and maybe that feels a little less frightening in a sense. It's kind of you're feeling into the life you have in all its complexity.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, when you said it first, I thought, well, he's really brave, That sounds like, yeah. But yeah, this life, yeah, bringing it this right here
into your life. That's, I guess that's what inquiry is. We're inquiring together into the mystery.
You mentioned freedom right in the beginning, and I'm not remembering much of the context, but I was wondering about calm and freedom. To me, it's not a place I often am, except definitely in sitting, which is why it's so good for me. But I think when like, for example, you turn the microwave on for 1 minute, and of course, what can I do in that 1 minute? I could do something else. And today at lunch, I said, well, why don't you try not doing anything? Just stand and be with the minute.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a little freeing.
And how was that for you?
It was really good. It was it was a little like sitting, just encouraging myself to stay still. I'm getting really emotional. I guess it was good. Yeah, it was a pretty grounding experience. Yeah, I would say that's what it was.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's hard to pause, to stop. And sometimes if I do it, I have a voice saying, we've got work to do here, while you're boiling the potatoes, you could be, and to be able to do that for a minute is quite lovely, actually.
I would say I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And the phrase was to attain the freedom of our being physically and mentally. And maybe the inquiry is for now and for the rest of our lives. What would that be? What would that be? As you're in your kitchen and pausing, you can get it out of your pocket.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
What would that be? What would that be like then, you know? And also it's kind of funny because like we do sometimes take it so seriously, but you know, it's okay.
And
Just
it's okay to have a thing that's a reminder.
why not? Why not? We often put the secret of life in our pocket and we put it in the washing machine and it gets destroyed. So take it out before you wash your jeans. So you
Yeah,
yes,
I'll have to laminate it to keep it.
keep the secret of life there. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Catherine. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And that's why I wanted to come forward. See you.
Mm.
Mm.
It's the kind of essential thing, isn't it, to just be together. Don't have to say anything. Here we are. Mm.
But I am going to say something.
Yes, I thought you would.
Well, to thank you for evoking the memories of St. Ives, and I always loved the Lighthouse and the book for the Lighthouse. And I was thinking how certain things, you know, the mystery of certain things speaking to us. And I was on holiday in the opposite end of Great Britain on a Scottish island called Iona. And it was a struggle in some ways. And one morning, suddenly it was sunny, and I walked on the beach. And I looked down at my feet. There was there's a very big stretch of sand and one pebble.
Oh.
And it's a bit of marble from Iona. And it shouldn't have been on that beach. It should have been on another beach on the opposite side of the island where there's a marble quarry. And this particular kind of stone that's been tumbled in the sea and has this shape is called St. Columba's tear, one of St. Columba's tears. And they're very unusual to find. And coming out of this quite challenging holiday in some ways, it was as if the world had spoke.
Yes. Yeah.
And it said, there's a jewel in all this, but it won't come without tumbling, and it will involve tears. Now, I don't believe that the universe is personal and has got special messages for me. But there was something about, there was a message from me, for me, created by me, but in relationship to the natural world.
Yes. Yes. And
And
I love your
yeah,
description of it.
and
And
it's
it,
as if it's speaking all the time. And sometimes we make the meaning, but we make the meaning because we've made a connection.
yes. Yes. Can you say, just to finish off our time together, can you say what you said about there will be tears, and just because I feel it encapsulates the whole meeting today?
But it said to me, there is a jewel, there is a beautiful jewel. This to me is a jewel, but it won't come without turbulence. It
Yeah.
won't, and it will involve the sadness of the world.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so
Because of impermanence, because of impermanence.
Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful way of ending this meeting today. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
So we'll now say together the 4 practice principles, please. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you, everyone. It's been really beautiful to be with you today, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime.